Are the Dutch really tolerant? It is one of the most famous things people say about the Netherlands, a small country with a big reputation for openness, diversity, and acceptance. But is this image true today, or is it more of a myth? Let's take a closer look at the history, the reality, and the nuances behind Dutch tolerance. To begin, we have to look back at where this reputation comes from. Dutch tolerance has roots going all the way back to the 16th and 17th centuries, the Dutch Golden Age. This was a period when the Netherlands was a global trading hub, connecting Europe with Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Amsterdam, in particular, became a melting pot of cultures, religions, and ideas. At a time when much of Europe was deeply divided by religious wars, the Dutch Republic stood out for its policy of relative freedom of conscience. People could worship in private, even if their beliefs didn't match the state religion. This was also the era when philosophers like Spinoza and Erasmus were promoting ideas about freedom of thought and individual rights. The Dutch weren't necessarily embracing total equality at the time. There were still social hierarchies and restrictions, but compared to other European nations, the Netherlands was seen as more open-minded. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the Dutch image of tolerance had grown even stronger. In the 1960s and 70s, the Netherlands became known for progressive social policies. It was one of the first countries to legalize abortion, euthanasia, and same-sex marriage. It pioneered harm reduction approaches to drug use, famously allowing regulated cannabis sales in coffee shops. Dutch cities became known for vibrant LGBTQ+ communities, and the country often ranked high on lists of personal freedoms and human rights. But here's where the story gets more complex. While the Netherlands has strong legal protections for individual freedoms, cultural tolerance doesn't always mean total acceptance in every area. For example, immigration has changed the social landscape in recent decades. Large waves of migration from former Dutch colonies like Suriname and Indonesia, and later from Morocco, Turkey, and other countries, have brought new cultural diversity, but also sparked debates about integration, identity, and social cohesion. Some people in the Netherlands embrace multiculturalism, seeing it as a natural extension of the country's trading history. Others worry about cultural differences and what they perceive as challenges to Dutch values. The 2000s saw high-profile political debates on immigration and integration, with figures like Pim Fortuyn and Geert Wilders challenging the idea that Dutch tolerance is unlimited. So is Dutch tolerance fading? The answer is complicated. In some ways, the Netherlands remains deeply committed to freedoms, especially around personal lifestyle choices, gender equality, and LGBTQ+ rights. The legal framework for these freedoms is among the strongest in the world. However, in social conversations, there can be tension between this tradition of individual liberty and concerns about social change. It is also worth noting that Dutch tolerance often works on a principle of live and let live, which means people believe you should be free to live your life as you choose, as long as you don't disturb others. This is slightly different from the idea of actively celebrating all differences. It's more about personal freedom and social harmony than about enthusiastic diversity promotion. Some sociologists call this pragmatic tolerance. It's a kind of tolerance that's less about ideology and more about practical coexistence. If someone's lifestyle, beliefs, or habits don't interfere with public order or the rights of others, then they're generally accepted. But if they are seen as disruptive, criticism can be blunt and direct. For example, the Netherlands has long been proud of its acceptance of LGBTQ+ people, yet there have been recent concerns about rising discrimination. There's strong support for gender equality, but debates still happen over pay gaps and representation in leadership roles. The country allows religious expression, but headscarves in religious schools are sometimes part of heated discussions about integration. This blend of openness and frank criticism can be surprising for newcomers. In some cultures, tolerance is expressed through politeness and avoiding difficult topics. In the Netherlands, people may discuss sensitive issues openly, and this directness can feel like intolerance if you're not used to it. But in Dutch culture, being able to debate openly is often seen as a sign of respect and trust. We also can't ignore the role of law and institutions. Dutch law protects against discrimination on the basis of race, religion, gender, and sexuality. The healthcare system offers access to reproductive rights and gender-affirming care. Education encourages discussion of human rights and critical thinking. But laws alone don't erase personal biases. And public opinion can shift over time. When we compare the Netherlands internationally, it's clear the country is still among the leaders in many areas of freedom and rights. Same-sex couples can marry and adopt, euthanasia is legally regulated, and freedom of speech is strongly protected. But tolerance is not a static thing, it is a value that has to be continually negotiated, especially in a society that is changing demographically and culturally. The truth is, Dutch tolerance is a mix of tradition, law, and social habit. It's rooted in centuries of trade, a history of religious compromise, and a modern emphasis on personal freedom. But it also faces the same challenges as any diverse society, balancing individual rights with collective identity, and making sure that equality on paper translates into equality in daily life. For some people, the Netherlands will always represent a beacon of liberal values. For others, the directness of Dutch debates and the visible social tensions might make them question just how tolerant the society really is. In the end, whether the Dutch are really tolerant depends on how you define tolerance. If you mean legal protections and the right to live your life largely as you wish, then yes, the Netherlands is one of the most tolerant countries in the world. If you mean total acceptance of every cultural or personal difference without debate or disagreement, then no society, including the Dutch, fully meets that ideal. What's clear is that Dutch tolerance isn't a myth, but it isn't a simple truth either. It's a living, evolving part of the national identity, shaped by history, challenged by change, and constantly renegotiated in public life. And maybe that is the most tolerant thing of all, the willingness to keep the conversation going. If you found this exploration of Dutch tolerance interesting, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives into Dutch culture, and let us know in the comments, do you think the Netherlands is truly tolerant, or is it just good at marketing its image to the world?